Hey guys, and welcome back to another flashlight review. Today we're going to be looking at the Sofirn SP35T, and some of you would know that I've owned the original SP35 for a long time now. It was actually one of the first flashlights I purchased maybe 2 years ago when I first got back into collecting them, and yeah, it's an excellent all-rounder, but started using it less and less once I got into tactical lights. But it turns out Sofirn have a tactical version of the SP35. This one here, the SP35T. And Sofirn have provided me this sample of the SP35T to create this review. So let's have a look at what's in the box. Okay, so this is the box that it comes in. Pretty basic Sofirn box. And I like how they keep things simple. You also get a 21700 Sofirn cell, 5000 milliamp hour cell, and the flat top. You get a USB-C charging cable as well, which is pretty standard. I've got about 100 of these things. And you also get a lanyard and a spare, or couple of spare O-rings in there as well. Okay, little side-by-side comparison, and I've got the Sofirn SP35T to the left, Sofirn SP35 in the center, and I've also got my Phoenix PD35R here on the right. And it's interesting because it is quite comparable in size to these other two to the left, except it's just a little bit narrower in diameter. Little close-up here of the SP35T, and overall I would say the construction quality is good, especially when you're looking at this price point with budget flashlights. And you know, there's no imperfections, no rough spots at all, and the quality of all these budget lights have just increased dramatically over the past few years, and they're very competitive. I'd say quite a few of them do keep up with lights that I pay 2 or 3 times the price for. And you know, just simple things, small things like this, like the lettering here, it lines up exactly with the battery tube, this little design on the battery tube, and also with the head of the flashlight. You know, I did find that a bit annoying on some budget lights, how those things just don't line up, but Sofirn have nailed it on this model. You've got some cutouts here on the side of their head as well. I guess they're more for design, though they could help with a bit of heat dissipation just to increase the surface area of the head. And you know, you do have some checkered knurling as well on the side of the battery tube, on the tail cap as well. And Sofirn include this double-sided clip, very handy. You can stick it onto your hat if you want as well. And yeah, you got this, look on the side there, USB-C charging port. I really like this switch design by Sofirn because they've used a metal construction. There's also a metal ring around as well. And you know, the tail cap, if we have a look there, basically just features one really large rubber button. You have these 2 raised edges as well that allows the light to tail stand. And yeah, that side switch that I mentioned as well only works when the tail switch is activated. So you have to have the light basically on first with the tail switch. Some people don't like these little bits that jut out the end there. And I've heard that it can make it difficult to turn the light on. But in my experience, especially with such a large switch like this, I don't see how you could miss that switch. So if we look down the head, you can see there's the XHP50B in there, 6,000 to 6,500 K. And it's paired with this orange peel reflector. And I think this is probably just to make the beam profile more even, remove that donut hole that you do see with some of these larger profile LEDs. And there is a crenulated bezel as well. It's just machined into the aluminium. So yeah, it's no sharp bits or anything like that. Reminds me a bit of the Phoenix ones as well. Should be fine for security checkpoints, bring onto planes, that kind of thing. So I'm going to go through the UI. Now there are 2 modes that you can switch into, 2 UI settings. So you can choose between tactical and general lighting mode. And in order to switch between them, you basically turn the light on and you press and hold that side switch for a few seconds. And you can see here, it's switched over to tactical mode. I'll press again, press and hold again, and it's now switched back to the general lighting mode. Okay, there is a little shortcut to the eco mode as well. So just by pressing the side switch and pressing holding the side switch and pressing the end switch, you do see this with a lot of Sofirn lights out there with this tactical interface, and workhorse lights as well. So in general lighting mode, basically press the tail switch to turn on. This will activate the memory mode. So you might have it in that mode there, turn on, turn off. It just goes back to that last mode that you used. And as you saw before, you just press that switch on the side to go between eco, low, medium, high, and it just cycles in between. Now, at any point you want to go into turbo, double press that switch, press it again to go back into the last mode that you use, so the last memory mode. And you can also triple click for strobe, double press again to SOS, get the SOS, another double press for beacon mode. So let's go back onto the tactical mode. So I'm going to just switch over to tactical mode, and tactical mode is actually pretty simple. So anytime you press that back switch, essentially you're going to get turbo. Now if you press, kind of tap and press, tap and then press and hold for the second, you get this strobe function. Okay, and it's actually would be good to mention as well, in the general mode, if you do this same thing, you get a shortcut to turbo. Okay, but I would say if you really want to use that shortcut to turbo, get it into that tactical mode, because that way you don't have to worry about pressing or anything like that. It always goes on to turbo. Once you have the light on, you can press the side switch to change to medium mode. Okay, and it doesn't memorize the medium mode, which is great. So whenever you press that tail switch, it's just always going to go to turbo. And I think this is a really good good little interface, because you see, even with Phoenix lights, when you switch it over to some of the other modes, it actually memorizes those modes as well, which means when you try to activate what you think is turbo, you end up maybe going into medium or high, which can be very inconvenient if you're using it for self-defense purposes. On tactical mode, you can also activate strobe by double pressing this button on the side, double press again for SOS, double press again for beacon. All right, so I ran a bunch of ceiling bounce tests here with the Sofirn SP35T, and this is the first one on turbo, and I was surprised to see that it actually lasted 2 minutes, about 2 minutes of runtime on 100% turbo, and you can see it steps down to about 20% at that 2-minute mark. Finished the test at 20 minutes. Here you can see I ran a second ceiling bounce test on high, and I've got nearly 3 minutes of runtime on high before it stepped down to about 45% at the 3-minute mark. You can see I've ended the test just after the 10-minute mark. This is a third test that I ran on the medium mode, and you can see it pretty much holds the brightness 100% all the way throughout the test, and I ended it at 30 minutes. So I ran a bunch of tests on my Audible Light Master Pro, and you can see here on turbo, I got 245 meters, which is pretty decent, especially for a light with such a floody LED and orange peel reflector. Even on the high mode, 156 meters is pretty good as well. CRI range from 70 to 71, so definitely more on the lower side, but this light is, the LED is more for visibility rather than color recognition. And the CCT was pretty much on the spot on there, with 5,800K all the way to 6,200, increasing as you step up through the modes. The SP35T produces lots of floody light with a large central hotspot. And, though there's lots of fun flashlights with those pencil thin beams that you get, spotting flashlights, like the W1, W2 LEDs, I think this beam profile was definitely more useful to illuminate a larger area, but still retain a decent amount of range. All right, so some considerations that I think you guys should be aware of, and maybe I'm a bit biased with this first one, but I was hoping that this light would throw a bit further. 245 meters is more than adequate for most, scenarios, urban scenarios or outdoor scenarios, but, I would kind of wondering what would it be like if they'd put in some type of smooth reflector in there. The second consideration is that this light steps down a lot from turbo, and I can't confirm, but I think there is a FET driver in this light. But the good news is that you can obviously reactivate turbo whenever you need to. The third consideration is that I would have liked to see a lower moonlight mode. So, 1 lumen moonlight mode. I have seen this in other lights, other Workhorse tactical lights, where they've put a eco mode in the UI, but also a separate moonlight mode. But you know, 5 lumens still pretty low. It's not a deal breaker for me. So overall, this is probably one of the best value budget 21700 tactical flashlights out there. You get everything you need in the box. You get the battery, you get accessories, the charger, and I like how you can just change the UI from general to tactical mode, which just extends the amount of usage scenarios you can get out of this light, rather than just have a tactical light that goes onto turbo all the time. May not be so useful around the house. And you know, it's not the throwiest tactical light in my collection, but it definitely holds up and is competitive with the rest of my collection. And I like how it produces a heap of light for its size. You know, it's not much larger than my Phoenix PD35R even. So if you're interested, go ahead and check out the link down in the video description. I've got a special discount voucher available there. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, do me a big favor and click the like button. It's one of the few ways that I get my videos recommended. And if you want to see more flashlight reviews and more news, make sure you subscribe. Sofirn SP35T, and this is on the lowest mode, so basically the eco mode. And not bad for a close-up walking light. Second mode, bit of rain at the moment. Third mode, that's the high mode, and managing to illuminate through to that field pretty well, even with this rain. Trying to hold the light to the side so that you don't get too much of that reflection from the rain. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and turbo. And turbo is just, I mean, this is just a heap of light. And I wouldn't say there's a huge concentration of light in the hotspot, but definitely most of that light is focused in the center of the beam. The spill is pretty bright too. I'll go for a little bit of a walk so you can see what the beam pattern looks like. Turn it back to high and to turbo, so you can just alternate between high and turbo on this general lighting mode. So I'd say, you know, it starts about 1.5 meters ahead of me, so the spill starts about 1.5 meters ahead. For a tactical light, definitely it does produce a fair bit of spill, which is unusual, but I think the fact that it has decent throw as well, just due to the sheer output. Pretty happy with this beam. It's a very practical beam. Double press for turbo again. Feel the head getting pretty hot. But yeah, it does step down fairly aggressively though. This is the tactical mode. So just, you can get strobe, or you can just go just normal turbo. You can also alternate between medium and turbo like this.